Hello, beautiful visionaries. This is Lorna Lee. I am so honored today to bring to you Prema Lee Gurreri, who is a Vedic astrologer, soul advisor, author, and business consultant who guides and teaches entrepreneurs, visionaries, and change agents to lead with their high value gifts and fully align with their purpose and passion to create wealth for themselves and the world simply by being who they are and doing what they love to do. And so she's going to share with us how we can unlock our sacred wealth code and attract the perfect fit soulmate clients. Now, I want to share with you that I was honored to receive a reading from Prema years ago, and it was quite funny because this was before I launched Entheo Nation. And so when she shared with me my secret wealth code, there were certain archetypes that came up, and I was like, wow, that's so interesting. That feels really good. And, that's great that, I'm totally, aligned with that. And then little did I know how it all played out in the journey that unfolded for me, where I launched a platform that now reaches over 100,000 people through various channels, through YouTube, iTunes, my blog, through Facebook, and it's truly in alignment with what I'm passionate about and what I love. And I never thought at all I could possibly generate revenue from it. So I just want to share that with you, that, you know what, like, your destiny, there is a soul map, there's a soul destiny for you, and you might be surprised that if you follow it, life and your business may unfold in surprising ways. So Prema, thank you for joining us today, and I'd love for you to share with us your story on how you came to do this very special work.
Oh gosh, I think thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. And it's really an honor to serve your visionary tribe. And I just love you dearly. And I love what you're doing out here in the world in such a big way. And I love it completely. So, this has been a lifelong journey. Like all of you, whatever you're doing has been a lifelong journey. Everything that I've gone through, the great things and also the big challenges, have led me to, who I am and what I'm here to give. And I really love to support people like yourself, visionaries, leaders, change agents, really stand in what I call your highest value gifts. And I learned that by learning how to stand in my own highest value gifts. And through being a very intuitive young person and having, like, my parents not know what the heck that was about and not having that nurtured in me, but having circumstances presented to me where there was nowhere on the outside world to turn for help, and I had to consistently turn inward, I would say that's really the beginning of my path and learning how to trust that. And I'm so grateful for my horses and my animals, because they really got me, and I felt that. But I felt out of place in the human physical world in a big way. And as I went through my journey, I was exposed to sacred teachings and yoga by the time I was, like 15, 16 years old. And that was about the time where I also ended up living on my own. And I'm just so grateful for that, because I've been steeped in those traditions throughout the years, which led me to opening a yoga center. I had small centers, but this was like a big deal. It was like 3,500 square feet, 2 studios, beautiful office space. Kids came there after school, community, teacher training. But something was off, even though I felt like I was totally on purpose. And anyone listening in right now, if you've been feeling like, yeah, I'm really on purpose, but, well, the money's not following, or the clients aren't following, or the opportunities aren't following, just listen in for a minute. Like, I really thought I was really doomed. So along my spiritual and entrepreneurial path, it came a time where I fell into being a yoga teacher. And I used to sit and ask the divine often, a yoga teacher, isn't there something else? And then after, at that time in my life, after really sitting with that, I was always shown that, under the umbrella or guise of being a yoga teacher, I could teach everything that I knew, because that's really what yoga is. There's so many branches of yoga. So I ended up opening up a yoga center that was called Yoga and Beyond the Yoga of Life, where really under that umbrella, I was doing my Vedic astrology. I was training yoga teachers in my own method, which is a very heart-centered yoga, but also with an attention on alignment, because we're kind of like these spiritual antennas when we put ourselves in these different spiritual positions. I created a really beautiful community. I had 4 kids at the time. There was even a place at this beautiful center I created for my children. And I really felt like I was really on purpose. And something was off though. And I kept trying to figure out what that was. I think I did every clearing process in the book. I counseled with my mentors, and as much that was on, what was off was the material world, physicality and money. Now, it was a 6-figure in sales business, so it wasn't like we weren't taking any money. But because of overhead and such, there just wasn't enough coming to me for what I was putting out into the business. And after almost 5 years, not being able to get out of a lease, I was obviously supposed to be there, trying to sell it, trying to get a partner in, even tried to turn it into a nonprofit, and like everything was just going to go, and then it just would fall out. So one day I was opening up the center door, and this was just such a gorgeous building. It was really ahead of its time for where it was. And as I opened the door, it sunk in the message the divine kept giving me, which is you have to let this go. And I thought letting it go before was like, okay, I'm going to just keep surrendering and keep moving on. But I heard, no, you actually have to let this whole building business, this whole thing go, which was devastating to me. First of all, I felt super vulnerable. I would feel incredibly exposed in that. Yes, I'm not going to lie, feel like a failure, had come up in that. But it was so clear. So I just took a deep breath. I was really in the dark night of my soul. And I just did what I needed to do to dissolve the business, go into private practice. And I vowed when that happened, I felt like I was on my knees anyway. If you've ever been in the dark night of your soul, that means there's nothing on the outside that's giving you any information you need. And the only place to turn is inside. And in that, time on my knees, I just vowed that I would figure out what was off, because I couldn't figure it out, and I knew something was off. And that's really where I discovered my sacred wealth code. In that deep discovery of what was amiss, I found out that I wasn't really standing in excuse me for a second, my highest value gifts. Even though I'm a great teacher and a sage, that's part of my archetypes. And even though I'm an incredible, great nurturer, what was really off for me was that I was standing in some of the shadow. I was taking on too much responsibility. I was trying to do it all by myself. So that was, I had the shadow of control going on big time there. I had lived on my own since I was very young, very independent. So that was great, but that also didn't allow me to even know how to ask for help. So I really dug into clearing the aspects of my shadow that I could find at the time. And I'm going to be honest, I'm still clearing my shadow. The more I expand, the more I notice where I'm contracted in somewhere, where my shadow is. And I think that's a lifelong process. So as I came out of that time, I started to step into my true gifts and less of my shadow. And the first thing I did was I got help. I asked my dad to lend me some money, which I had never done in my life. And that might not seem like a big deal to you, but I've lived on my own since I was 15, 16 years old. I didn't know one put me to school. I did it all on my own, not because I wanted to at the time. That's just what life presented at the time. I hired a heart-centered business coach. I went back to work with my spiritual and my Vedic Astrologer mentor. And in that, I realized, there's a lot of support here for me, so that now I can allow those people to stand in their gifts and be in my life, and I could stand in my highest value gifts. And in that, within a 6-8 months period of time, I really turned my whole financial situation around and grew my business, doing what I love to do, but doing it in a way where I was working online, I was working in private clients, and at that time holding very small exclusive classes for any of the classwork I was doing, and charging 3 and 4 times as much as I ever did before. And people were just saying yes. That's because I got aligned. And I got on my purpose and stepped out of the shadow. But the beautiful thing was that the Sacred Wealth Code came to being during that time. And it's based on a principle in Vedic astrology where your purpose and your prosperity planets intersect. The scientific principle, it's what's called Dana yogas in Vedic astrology. And what I noticed for myself, but over the next couple of years, really noticed for everybody that I was guiding, teaching, leading, and doing readings for, was that this is really where this intersection where your life purpose and your prosperity is really where I find people's highest value gifts and where I found my own. And what I mean by that is you're good at a lot of things. I'm great at too many things. But what are you so valuable for? What are you so good at that you might not even be doing? Because sometimes they're very unseen gifts. These are things like you were just born with a PhD in. And because our world looks from the outside and says, where's that plaque you can hang on the wall to say that you actually really know that? A lot of times we don't trust what we're most magnificent at. So I've been talking for a little while, so I'm going to pause here, Lorna, and just let you come in here. But that's where this body of work, that's where it came through me. I don't want to say I created it. I really just opened up, and it's come through me, and it continues to come through me.
So can you give us some examples or indications that we would see in a Vedic astrology chart that indicates that certain gifts that we have are our most empowered gifts that would attract the most abundance if we cultivate them?
So without geeking out on you totally and assuming that you all know how to read a Vedic astrology chart, again, I'm looking where the purpose planets are connected with your wealth planets. But let's define wealth, first of all. So from my standpoint, I look at wealth and I look at it again through that view of being a Jyotish, which means the science of light, a Vedic astrologer, which is wealth is everything you need to fulfill your purpose. All your purpose houses are followed by your wealth houses. And it's what you need to acquire. So we just think it's money. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to dumb you all down and say you just think it's money, but it's just our culture just translates it that way. So that seeps into all the cracks of your being, whether we like it or not. And it is part of it, but it's the knowledge, it's the resources, it's even the food, it's the relationships you need to do what you've come here to do, to be who you've come here to be, to really stand in all of your vibration, all of your frequency. And in Vedic astrology, again, that's where those planets come together, or where we look where they are placed. And when I look where they're placed, where they come together, there are, just depending on where they are, which we get to through a Vedic astrology reading, a sacred wealth code reading, or in my book, it's a self-guided process to figure that out for yourself. These are, again, where you are, where your gifts are. So for instance, this is what I'm talking about. Like Lorna and I, before we got on this interview, as we were just saying hello, I was picking a few of the Sacred Wealth Code archetype cards just as we were talking, just to, how the energy is going. And I grabbed the Honorable Warrior out of the deck. And this is actually one of her Sacred Wealth Code archetypes. And we haven't talked about archetypes yet, but I will. And, this is such a spiritual warrior and I always see her as a spiritual warrior, who takes a stand for positive change, takes a stand for what we believe is right and true. But as an honorable warrior, this is a warrior who is willing to stand up for truth, and also takes the directions from the spiritual, from the inside, whether that's from somebody you put in your life as a spiritual master, or whether that's, ultimately the spirit, how spirit speaks to you. As somebody who's willing to put themselves out there, maybe more than other people are, can see where, change needs to happen, and is willing to put the foot in the door and say, no, we're not going to just let this go like it's always been. It's time for this to go in a different direction. And it's usually a very unique direction, and also stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. There's also some shadow sides, being a rescuer, also be more attached to getting things done and completing things. And there's a few things on the shadow side of, she's laughing, of an honorable warrior. But to come full circle around here, the archetypes came in a little bit later as I'm describing people's gifts and what you're so magnificent at. Then the archetypes started to drop in, and I was so grateful because they're a soul language. That means that I can say honorable warrior to you, visionary to you, queen, teacher, and the story opens up within you that speaks to your psyche that you can understand. It's very, very personal. So even in my book and my cards, I explain what all this is. It's also even written in a language that's very timeless, because I believe that better than anyone else when asked the right questions or the doors opened in the right way, and I consider myself a door opener, that you know, your soul knows. The answers are within, and that's where I always want to support anybody that I'm touching or working with, to find those answers, whether we're looking at the next launch in your business, or where your clients are, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit here, or whether that's really, you know, what is it that I'm really here to do?
So I'm intrigued by the archetype work that I see in many spiritual communities and businesses. So it's kind of interesting. There's like, for example, priestess presence. Elaine Kalila Dowdy. She's got her archetypes of the priestesses. So I really would, and you have your archetypes. So I really want to understand do how do we work with archetypes? Like,
Yeah.
where do the archetypes come from? Who determines the archetype? Like, did you channel your sacred, code archetypes? And then, how can we work with, any of them whenever we want, or are there ones that actually kind of tend to be our principal guides?
So both, yes, yes, and yes. So first of all, let's just talk about archetypes. Archetypes are a soul language, and different bodies of work throughout time have had everything from Greek mythology, Indian mythology. There's been archetypes really through all cultures, and again, we can say, like, I've got the artist here. We could say the artist, and again, there's a whole language that speaks up to you. So it's a soul language that can speak to, I could say artist to you, and I could say artist to 3 other people, and a little bit different of a story may open up for each and every one of us. And it's going to be personal, but there's going to be some real commonalities to it as well. These archetypes, so I love the archetypal language. It's an actual language, okay? Just like Sanskrit's an actual language. Spanish is a language. English is a sign language. It's a way to communicate. So it's a soul communicating language. These archetypes, I definitely channeled these archetypes. Each of the planets has 3 archetypes, and the north and south node of the moon each have 1. There's 23 in the body of work. The whole body of work pretty much downloaded. There are Western type names and archetypes, but built into them, so to speak, is the Indian mythology. There's a lot of archetypal language in Vedic astrology and in Indian mythology. And because I speak mostly English to people who speak, in the Western world, so it's in a language that, so I'm not trying to explain all the archetypes of India to people who may have no reference system or understanding. This was the quickest. I think that's why my soul gave it to me this way. It was the quickest route, but written within them, all those qualities are there of the Indian tradition as well. So they came through in a universal kind of a way, but they are very rich and deep. So if you read about the Queen in this deck, or in this body of work, or the artist, or the engineer, you may see some different things than if you pulled an engineer from some branding type of archetype system. These actually came channeled through. So that's answering one question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then in your sacred wealth code, you typically have, depending on how your planets are configured, but you typically have 3 to 5 archetypes. Some of them kind of hold hands together because they're in the same place in the chart, and some of them are standalones. And my Sacred Wealth Code book leads you through a whole process to understand wealth in a whole new way. And I say process because it's a playbook, it's a journal. I ask you deep questions. There's meditations, there's an online portal that goes with all of that. So it's a journey that you take, and you understand more about what wealth is for you, including what's holding you back from your wealth. And then you're led through a process to actually read through all the archetypes and choose them, or let them choose you. Or you can come in and get a Sacred Wealth Code reading, and I have 3 different levels of reading that you can do, where I'm going to just look at your chart and you are going to get your archetypes. Now, when it comes to working with your archetypes, the more you get to know them, they are definitely your guides. In my different courses and programs and my clients, we have lots of different ways to tune in with the archetypes. And everything from a weekly meeting, everything from pulling a card out of the deck on a daily basis, whether it's one of your sacred wealth code archetypes or not. All these energies are within you. So for instance, maybe you're going to give a talk and you may not be feeling that strong today, or you pull out the communicator and you pull out the leader. And you read about them, you start to embody that energy. There's a list of high value gifts. There's a soul purpose. There is a mantra that goes with each one. There's lots of different ways you can connect, giving you to connect in with them, not just reading paragraphs. And you can also see where you're stuck in the shadow. So you can evoke the energy, or you can use them as your guides within your sacred wealth code, or generally as your guides, because they're all within you anyway. But when you're using your sacred wealth code, you part of the work is really understanding what are your highest value gifts that archetype might hold. So that archetype is kind of like a superpower that's got this superpower belt, and it's got these high value gifts. And I usually encourage you to, let's hone it down to 2 or 3, even though maybe you have 10, that you can really start to hone and wield and use those, because they really are your super unique gifts. And then of course, I help people, and then how do you use them? Where do you use them? You are going to, for instance, use your honorable warrior, Lorna, in different ways, in different places than you might use your visionary, or then you might use your queen, or then you might use your, you have a great magician in your chart as well. Then you might use your magician. So it's fun, number one. Number two, the more you get to know them, they're parts of you. The more you get to know these parts of you, which I have lots of different ways to do, it's a very rich language that you realize you've been having this conversation with these parts of yourself for a long time, or you've been avoiding this conversation. And it really opens the door. So they're there. So if I'm doing anything, I hold a roundtable meeting, I get everybody to weigh in on what it is that I'm doing next. That's how I even put this book together, and the cards and the journals coming out at the end of the month, and whatever I'm doing next. I counsel with these energies which are already within me. And the last thing I'll say about this is, because we live in an ever-expanding universe, your gifts are always expanding. There isn't an end to your gifts. So the more you use them, just like the more you play the piano, the better that you're going to get, or the more things that you're going to notice, and the nuances. And at different times, depending on the different soul cycle you're in, maybe you're more focused on classical, and maybe it's more jazz at a different particular time, or maybe now it's teaching. It might change forms or focuses, but that it continues to expand.
So I would love to hear about how we can use our sacred wealth code to attract our perfect fit soulmate clients.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I love ideal client attraction. It is an inside out process. So when you are aligned, first of all, with the highest and best of you, okay, so if you're aligned with your gifts, and you're also very aware of your shadow, where you're still stuck in your shadow, where you have been stuck in your shadow. This is also super important, because I guarantee you your clients are going to have been or are struggling with some of the things that you have or have been struggling with. Okay, so the shadow is equally important as the gifts in a lot of ways. When you're in your gifts and you are, I call it energetically standing behind yourself. So it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm a good writer. But you're not writing, or you're questioning yourself about your writing, or you are, and it's a very different thing to be, I'm a good writer, and you're looking for opportunities to write anywhere you can, and you're interacting with that ability. Well, by doing that, first of all, people are going to see your writing capacity more, because you're standing in with it. And if you're questioning your gifts, people can't see you as the beacon that you are. So if you're animating the high value gift of writing, or communicating with words, okay, which can also be through speech too. If you're really standing in that, you're using it, you've gained some confidence in it, you love it, you're working past your shadow that's keeping you from it, you're like a light bulb that's turned on very brightly. Now, if you're questioning it and you're not really using it, you kind of know it's a gift, but it's kind of in the closet or in the back door somewhere, then your light is really dim and nobody can see that. Now, you might say, oh, that's obvious, Prem, if I'm doing a lot of writing. So I wrote a book so people can see I actually can communicate. I actually can use words, right? If I could be talking about writing a book, not that many people are going to be attracted to me for that body of work or that author. That's on a very 3D worldly level. But we have a lot of unseen gifts. Like I'm an intuitive, whether I'm going to use Vedic astrology or not. I've always been an intuitive. I am an intuitive. I know that. I've been teaching people about intuition for years. Because I have that, I attract people who that's a value to, or want to get in touch with their intuition more so as well. It's an unseen gift. There was a time, and this is actually part of my story, and I'll just add this piece, is I had not come out of the closet about being the intuitive that I am when I had my yoga center. All my private clients, even though I had groups and stuff, all my private clients hired me for that, and I was a best kept secret. I wondered why that was, because I didn't fly that flag. I didn't say either with words or energetically, yeah, this is my gift. And when you do that, it not only empowers you to put a marketing strategy that's going to work for you in place, for you to end up in places where you're going to speak to your ideal clients. It's a level of confidence that you have. So there's a way to recalibrate on the inside so that you are aware of what your gifts are and who they resonate for. Too many times people are looking for where are those people? What are they struggling? It's all about the client. What are they struggling with? Who do you want to help?
Mm-hmm.
Many people like say, okay, no, but they need this. And I can help a lot of people. I stopped doing that a long time ago. I want to help. My clients are conscious leaders, entrepreneurs, change agents. And I say conscious because my clients usually have the gap of knowing it, but haven't embodied it, haven't fully come down to earth and integrated it, embodied it. And I help them close those gaps so that they can actually put their gifts into action in the world. I make the biggest difference I can make by doing that, by helping those who are here to make a bigger difference as well, and helping them to get embodied in line so that they can actually do that. I know that that's who my clients are. There's a lot of different ways that I can reach my clients, but if I was just trying to get into their head and figure out what they're wanting and needing, it's a piece of it. And I'm not saying that's not a piece of it, but if I don't know who I'm taking a stand for, like who I'm and the movement I'm creating, then there's not going to be a way for them to, an easy way for them to find me. And I'm going to keep running around in circles and circles, trying to figure out what they're thinking, breathing, and needing next. Am I making sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it sounds like to me the working with your sacred wealth code can help you also come to crystal clarity over exactly the kind of person that you want to attract and help. And so me also being a left-brained practical person, I see the value of that foundational step. And absolutely, yes, people who are listening, you can choose who you want to work with. You don't need to work with anybody that needs your help, and to help and to like focus your efforts on helping the person that needs your help. You can choose to help the person who needs your help and who matches that that ideal person that you want to help. So let's see if I were going to share with you just as an example, my ideal client avatar is somebody who's a light leader, somebody who has visionary ideas, who is, creating, who wants to ignite a movement, who is, leading, a business, and this being a for-profit business, who works with visionary medicines and wants to work with visionary medicines, with me, as their guide. Because of the work that I do, I know many trusted facilitators. I know which medicines are, effective for what purposes, retreat centers that are reputable. But then my gifts are like the, beautiful, website marketing, the web pages, the design, the funnels, the ebooks that, people go crazy about, that have crazy opt-in rates. Somebody who wants to work with, with me and my agency to create that. So we've got the spiritual container, we've got the entrepreneurial journey, and we also have the the actual, like, hands-on marketing creative work. So then let's say we were to get clear on that. How would one start, doing the work to begin to actually get them through? What
Yeah.
worked for you with your particular business, for example, because like mine is like very specific in that way, and so is yours. So, what are some of the strategies you share with your clients on growing their unique businesses?
First of all, if we first find out, once you find out, what your client, once you decide who your client is, you decide by what your gifts are. Once you decide what your client is struggling with, okay, and what your client actually really needs at this particular time, which is going to be not the same thing for everyone, but within whatever the genre of your work is, like you offer, maybe it's an ebook for this person, right? Or maybe it's this particular funnel. Maybe it's their website that needs to happen first, right? So we've got to, there's different components to this. Now, but once you decide, understand really what's going on for them and really what they need and where you're going to meet them, to take them down the next step of the trail here. I also think it's really important to understand what their core values are, and actually making a list. And this is part of my upgraded gift, but making a list of what the actual core values are of that client and what your core values are. And you make sure that you match those up. Usually they're very similar lists when you actually do it, but you actually want to go in and do it very separately, because a lot of times you're not attracting your clients because you're trying to attract somebody other than your clients. It's kind of a funny thing how that actually works. And then we have to look at your gifts and what your gifts are, and how do your gifts match up with what your client actually needs. Okay. So if your client is, so there's several steps in this process, Lorna. We've got the internal beacon that we've been talking about, okay? And our gifts are like that internal beacon. So that's the internal step. Then we've got the how and where are we going to meet them, okay? Where are we going to put ourselves out? So you need to know that for yourself, as far as, are you someone who is mainly an online person? Are you, do you need to communicate with people in person? So maybe that means that you are networking and giving talks and that sort of thing. Are you somebody who is actually a total behind the scenes person? And you are going to be providing, maybe it's copywriting and content. So then you're going to need to liaison with somebody else who's essentially that front person to help move that work through. So this is part of understanding who we are, because there's lots of different ways to put ourselves out there. But in the end, when it comes to attracting people, you've got to be willing to know what your movement is, like what's the real movement you're here creating, and that you're actually out doing it. So my movement, the movement I actually make, and that's like, when you do everything you do and you throw the pebble in the pond, what are the ripples that are actually happening? Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm leading people, teaching people to actually live from the inside out. That's kind of the core of my purpose. It can look a lot of different ways. So everything I do has to be the underpinning. So whether I'm getting on Facebook Live and doing a free training, whether I'm doing an interview like this, whether I am going out and giving a talk, whether I'm writing something, whether I'm writing my book is all written to where I'm guiding you to go inside and find the answers, So when you know that movement, which I think is a really big part of things, then, and you are actually not just talking about your movement, you're actually involved in your movement and using your gifts in your movement, your clients are naturally right there. So somebody who is, Lorna, for you, your clients, they just want to get on with doing their thing. And they've got these stopgaps of some of the services that you provide, like how do we get that out there in the digital format, right? Mm-hmm. So that they can be more global in that way. That can be a huge stopgap for people. That you understand, because you actually do a lot of what they want to do, but you have this other side of your gifts and also the leader that you are, so that you can have a team who can actually execute the stuff that isn't fully in your gift range, but you understand how it needs to be done. So you fill this gap for people so that they can have this megaphone on their energy and they can actually make those connections out there in a global space, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Because a lot of the technology is so difficult for people. I've seen it, it's like I just think, like, wow, like I just really want to make it easier for people to get their website up, to get their ebook out, with their visionary ideas. So yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, like for instance, one of uh, so many clients. Okay, so one of my clients,
Hmm.
she came to me as a life coach and was a lawyer, an attorney, excuse me, a divorce lawyer before that. Divorce lawyer turned life coach.
Hmm.
And so she's, guiding everybody with everything. Great coach, but never really, getting any traction and trying a lot of different things. So when we drilled down with her and she got into her gifts, she actually has an honorable warrior, but we also found out she actually has a great sense of intuition that she never really knew she had or knew how to use. She also is a very, very honorable, she's a very masculine woman. So we had to do the work to open up her feminine side,
Hmm.
but she realized that, oh my God, she calls herself an alpha coach because she teaches others to open up that feminine side and understands what it's like to be that really strong, masculine, feminine in the world. And their relationships don't work. I kept saying, you need to be a relationship coach. No, I'm good at being a divorce attorney. So in doing that, she did the work on herself and she came full circle and she speaks that language. She understands both sides of it and she speaks that language so very well. And so for her, she tried a lot of different things, some that's this and that, but it really came down for, she writes really good lessons and content, just like, and really based on her own personal, what she has gone through. And so she's created trainings and, and she blogs regularly. And she's involved in a couple other communities where she's got these very bite-sized trainings that speak to people very quickly. So instead of solving all their problems, we got her down to like, was a lawyer. She distills things down to bullet points. And the people she's talking to can digest that way. So she was able to use her gifts and that way and really flourish,
As a relationship coach.
as an alpha coach, helping strong women have successful relationships because they typically don't.
Huh. I wonder why that is. Is it because they just come off as being so overpowering that people?
I've done a lot of teaching. Well, and I think Satyan's even on this. I've done a lot of work with Satyan, David Data. I've done a lot of work with the masculine, feminine. So the bottom line is, if you're a woman and you're dominant and you're animating too much masculine energy, then the masculine is going to polarize into more feminine energy. Basically, you
Uh-huh.
have to take his balls out of your pocket and give him them back if you want him to actually be the real man that he is. Okay?
Okay.
So there, if you have, because it's polarization, if you're animating a strong masculine, you're going to attract men that are more feminine, which are going to feel weak to you, and you're going to continue to be in control, and it's really not going to work. Nobody's really going to be happy in that situation. Want everyone.
Got it.
So most women who are very strong in their masculine side have covered up this, I want to say, the strength of the feminine with these shells of what we've learned that it takes to be successful in the world as a woman. And let's face it, we're all just figuring out what the divine feminine really, really is, because that is not something that's been alive and well on our planet for a very long time. And this is a whole new discovery, because the way women have risen up is by acting like men. And now we're undoing a lot of that and finding our own true nature, and which is very different than, and that's why a lot of women have crashed and burned out. And we need our feminine leaders more than ever. But we need to be in our powerful feminine, which is very much from the heart, which is, very much community based and oriented, which is, it's not to say that men don't. I mean, the sacred masculine is amazing, but we need to stand in that divine and that sacred place on both sides of polarity as much as possible.
Thank you for sharing that tip and that observation. So in our last minutes together in this conversation, I would like to, take a little bit of a direction shift and ask you about the practical strategies of what it takes to publish and launch a visionary book and a visionary, is it an oracle deck or a tarot deck? What is that officially called?
It's an oracle deck. You are the oracle.
Mm-hmm.
You are the oracle, and when you pick a card, this, you're the oracle. You're going to interpret what the card has to say, and there's a guidebook that goes along with that. But you are the oracle, so you don't need to know any special, like,
the suits, the
you don't need to know any of that. Yeah,
and like the discs.
This is an intuitive. This is another gift for me to help people learn from the inside out. I have to circle back just one thing. I know we want to be super practical with attracting ideal clients. If you are great with the spoken word, Tanya has a great communicator who I just told a story about. That's where we focused her marketing and how she attracted clients, is through the written word and through the spoken word. So your gifts can really help you as far as attracting your clients. Don't try to be a great writer if you hate writing. There's, your gifts may be, maybe you're an artist and you're going to work more through, your art creations, and color, and that's how you connect. So there's lots of, different ways to connect. A book was the next step in my journey as far as attracting ideal clients. And to publish my book, I learned so much about this. I actually created my own publishing company. I ended up publishing under my own, which is Heart Drop Press, under my own publishing company. I actually did talk to a couple of publishers. I wanted to own this body of work. I'm not saying I'd never let it go to a publisher, but it wasn't convincing enough for me to at the time. Hit Amazon bestseller right away, and then went on to win 3 awards, including a Gold Award, Visionary Award for the book, and also 5 for the cards, including Product of the Year. But the actual doing of it is I had to take the ideas, I had to distill them down, I had to create an outline, I had to sit my butt down and write, I had to get a good editor. And I actually got my book done in about 7 months, but I really sat my butt down and did it. And then when it came to, and I had a good graphics person help me do the cover and stuff, when it came to do the cards, I was like, really, I'm going to do these? I collaborated with an artist who's my son's girlfriend, and we would talk about it, and she loves animals, and I would then, all these paintings are all, I have 23 of these hand-painted paintings. She and I would talk, and she would paint. I hired her to paint these paintings. And then we designed them, and my graphics person helped me put them together. This is a fractal, which is the Sacred Wealth Code logo that I just fell in love with. It's just an image from nature, and I think fractals say a lot. And so we put this deck together to get it published. That was hard. I'm going to be frank. It was not easy. I actually ended up hiring somebody who knew how to do this and introduced me to a publisher a printer that I could use and get this all printed. And then marketing is a whole other thing, and getting it up on Amazon because they don't print it is a whole other journey. It was a lot. If someone told me how much all this was, I would never have done it. So ignorance is bliss, and the things you feel called to do, just take one step at a time. And I'm really about like, what's the next inspired action step? Because we stop ourselves thinking 3 steps down the road that we can't do that. And I'm never saying that. Sometimes that's prudent. But if your card is saying take that next step, take it, because the doors will keep opening for you if you stay aligned and keep taking the next step. And depending on what step you take, a whole different set of choices open up for you. So and then the journal, which is I'm just waiting for my delivery of 2,000 journals, and then I'll have that out. And that's because this is a process of tuning in and getting your own answers and writing them down. And the journal is this great companion to all of this work. So whether you read the book, whether you use the card deck, and they can be used together, they can be used with a reading, or the cards can be used just simply on, just pick a card a day and get some intuitive guidance that'll speak to you.
So you actually had to find a publisher for the cards, whereas you self-published your book?
No, I self-published the cards too, but I had to get them printed. The first printing of my book I did through CreateSpace, and then I went ahead and had a printer print, because I have 5 different distributors who distribute my book as well, and also in Canada. So so I have distributors. So Amazon is one thing, and then I have distributors, and then I have to provide hard copies to my distributors.
So, the creative process is one thing, and it's already a tremendous amount of work just to, come to completion with a physical, tangible body of work like this. But then there's also the marketing aspect too, which is a whole other journey.
Whole
So,
other
how did you launch your book? What
Yeah.
did that look like? How much time should we spend doing it or like plan for? And what steps do we have to take? And then, of course, how did you do that for your cards?
Okay, so your book, if you're going to write a book, yeah, and if you're going to launch a book, if you can launch anything, but since we're talking about book, it's not this overnight thing. Although I launched it, and within a few days, it was a bestseller. And the book I launched a little over a year and a half ago, I'm still launching the book. That means I'm standing behind, just like I said, you have to stand behind your own energy and keep launching yourself and your gifts. I had to keep launching my book. So I'm always looking for opportunities to, whether I'm advertising with my distributors or where else I can, showcase that body of work. I just actually sold the foreign rights to the Czech Republic, and Saudi Arabia is looking at the foreign rights right now too. So, I'm working on international right now. So it's a process you stay with. First of all, is just getting it out into the marketplace. Digital is great if that's the first thing. That's simple. Just do it. Amazon, easy peasy, just do it that way. I have a big enough email list, and I did that. I had a few people mail out for me as well when I was offering the book just to do the bestseller on the digital version. Just for 2 days, we did a 99-cent version. And then when it came to the book, I also had a couple of people who helped mail out for me, and I sent out to my list. And then I also have submitted to some different book awards. Again, it's an ongoing process of keep putting it out there. Most people aren't successful with their books because they don't stand behind their work and they don't keep working it. Some people hire marketing people to do that. When it came to the cards, now I'd already launched the book. So then the cards, I pretty much did the same thing, a little different, not through CreateSpace. That's a whole Amazon Advantage thing where they're basically another distributor, so I sell to them. But Amazon is a very strange beast, and it's not simple. I'm going to say that, but you just stick with it, and now we're selling lots of cards and lots of books through that platform.
I love it. Wow. Thank you for being such an inspiration, such a force of creativity. We're at the end of our time together. Would you share with the audience what your free gift is for them?
Yes. First of all, there's a Sacred Wealth Code archetype quiz, which will help you. It'll give you one of your Sacred Wealth Code archetypes. It's a fun little simple quiz. And then you'll get this beautiful PDF printout and some trainings on the back end of that. And then also within your, how are you calling it, Lorna? Where the other training is going to go?
Oh yeah, so we have the upgrade package, the all access pass. So if you who are listening feel that you want to own this collection of workshops and interviews, and have on demand access and download them to your device and own them on your devices forever, you are invited to upgrade to the all access pass. And we also have amazing speaker bonuses in the upgrade bundle as well. And so Prema is contributing a special gift to that bundle. So can you share what that is?
Yeah, that's the Unlock Your Sacred Wealth Code to attract your ideal clients. So we kind of touched on some of these subjects today, but to help you discover your internal design for wealth that's encoded in your soul blueprint, and how to use that, right, to attract clients, discover who your ideal clients actually are. I actually give you a whole process about understanding their core values, your core values, what are they struggling with, where your gifts are going to match that, and learn how to use your highest value gifts. I'll teach a whole process around, some of it. We dabbled in a lot of it today, but this is a full video training. There's an ideal client meditation that's super, super powerful. I have, in fact, one of my clients who I've worked with for the last 2 years, a VIP private client, she said, I've gone back to using it every day because it works every time I need new clients. And there's a couple of worksheets that go along with it. So it's a lovely training to get you in gear for both internally and practically to attract your ideal clients.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your wonderful gifts. How can the audience best stay in touch with you?
Easiest way to find me is Solutionary is my business and my website, but you can get there really easily through Sacred Wealth Code. sacredwealthcode.com gets you right into my portal, and if you take the quiz, and you'll end up being on the email list, and I tend to send out astrology updates and special offers once in a while, and just groovy insight and things that I'm called to share with you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so glad to reconnect with you. I want to wish you a beautiful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.